Imagine a room where the air feels thick with history. One man, young yet carrying the weight of centuries of struggle on his shoulders, speaks with a clarity that cuts through all the noise. Another, sharp, outspoken, and unafraid to challenge conventional narratives, listens closely. That man is Charlie Kirk, known for sparking fierce debates across America. The other is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old leader of Burkina Faso, a figure who has become a symbol of defiance against global powers. Now, what happens when the unapologetic voice of American conservatism collides with the fiery determination of a West African revolutionary leader? You don't get a polite exchange. You get sparks. You get revelations. You get the kind of words that make you stop scrolling, lean in, and realize that leadership, true leadership, looks very different than what we've been sold. Because here's the truth. Ibrahim Traoré doesn't mince words. He doesn't play the polished political game. He speaks like a soldier who has seen his nation bled dry, like a man who has watched his people's dignity trampled by foreign powers and corrupt elites. And when he directed his words toward someone like Charlie Kirk, someone who prides himself on cutting through the lies of mainstream media, it wasn't just a conversation. It was a clash of realities. Traoré's message was simple yet devastating. The leaders we think we admire often serve interests that have nothing to do with their people. Real leadership demands sacrifice, not comfort. It demands service, not self-preservation. Let's pause here, because that idea that leaders should serve rather than rule is not radical on paper. But think about it. When was the last time you felt your leaders, wherever you are, actually put your interests before their own careers, their donors, their image on television? For most of us, that's a fantasy. For Traoré, it's a demand. And here's where the contrast kicks in. Charlie Kirk, a man who speaks daily about American freedom, small government, and cultural battles, suddenly found himself hearing a perspective rooted in something far older. The fight against colonialism, the fight against exploitation, the fight for dignity, in a land long treated as nothing, more than a resource pit for outsiders. Traoré didn't flatter. He didn't bow. He said words that, in essence, exposed the weakness of many modern leaders. They want power without responsibility. They want applause without sacrifice. They want titles without risk. Think about your own country for a second. Picture the faces of those in power. Do they risk their lives for you? Do they walk into the fire so that you can live free? Or do they sit comfortably, guarded by others, while they sign away your future in backroom deals? That's why this moment matters. Because when Ibrahim Traoré speaks, he is not theorizing. He is living proof of a leader willing to gamble everything, including his own life, for his people. In Burkina Faso, he stood up against both terrorism and international pressure. He rejected the chains of dependency, calling out institutions that bled his country dry under the guise of aid and stability. He declared that his people would stand tall even if it meant standing alone. And here's the part that shakes you. Charlie Kirk, a man often accused of being uncompromising, sat and listened. Why? Because in Traoré's words, there was no propaganda, no talking points, no agenda beyond survival and dignity. What Kirk heard was the raw essence of leadership, the kind you can't fake. Traoré told him, in not so many words, if you want to know a leader's true character, look not at their speeches, but at what they are willing to lose for their people. Now imagine if that standard were applied everywhere. Imagine if every senator, every president, every prime minister, every so-called representative was judged not by what they promised, but by what they risked. How many would remain? How many would survive such a test? Let's not romanticize this either. Traoré is not some mythical saint. He's a man who made a choice to step into chaos, to seize power in a coup, and to redefine what leadership looks like in one of the world's toughest regions. But here's the thing. His legitimacy doesn't come from polished elections or elite endorsements. It comes from the people who see him as one of their own. It comes from the fact that he lives among them, bleeds with them, and refuses to be their ruler, choosing instead to be their servant. This is where the emotional punch lands. Because for those of us watching from the outside, Traoré's words force us to reflect. They force us to ask questions we'd rather avoid. Why do we tolerate leaders who lie to us? Why do we accept being ruled instead of being served? Why do we settle for corruption disguised as stability, or incompetence masked as charisma? Charlie Kirk has built his reputation by challenging the status quo in America. But in this encounter, It was Kirk who had to reckon with a voice that comes from a place Americans rarely hear, the global South, the front line of geopolitical exploitation, the ground zero of Western hypocrisy, and that's why it struck so deeply. Traore reminded Kirk and all of us that leadership without sacrifice is theater. Leadership without risk is fraud, and leadership without service is nothing but tyranny dressed in suits. Now let me be clear, this isn't just about Burkina Faso, or America, or Charlie Kirk, or Ibrahim Traoré. This is about a universal truth we've forgotten. The media won't remind us, politicians certainly won't. But here it is, raw and unfiltered. True leaders are not comfortable. They are not celebrated. They are not safe. They are more often than not hated by the powerful, targeted by the corrupt, and threatened by the system they dare to challenge. So when Traoré spoke to Kirk, it wasn't simply a cultural exchange. It was a confrontation. It was a reminder that leadership cannot be about pleasing elites or keeping peace with those who exploit you. Leadership must be about protecting the powerless, defending dignity, and embracing sacrifice whether or not the world approves. And that is why those words matter. Because in a world drowning in false idols, Traoré threw down a gauntlet. Are you willing to pay the price for your people? Now let's dive even deeper. Because this moment between Ibrahim Traoré and Charlie Kirk isn't just an interesting anecdote. It's a mirror held up to every society, every movement, every nation grappling with the question, what kind of leaders do we want? Look around today's world. We see career politicians who rehearse empathy on camera but laugh behind closed doors. We see presidents who sell out their own industries for foreign contracts. We see prime ministers who bend the knee to international bankers while their citizens starve. And yet, these are the faces plastered on magazine covers, celebrated as statesmen. Contrast that with Traoré, a man whose every day in office could be his last. A man who knows that when he speaks out against exploitation, he paints a target on his chest. And yet he does it anyway. That's not politics. That's courage. That's leadership stripped of illusions. And here's the twist. Charlie Kirk, though coming from a completely different cultural and political context, found resonance in that. Why? Because the core truth is universal. It doesn't matter if you're in Ouagadougou or Washington, Lagos or Los Angeles, people are starving for leaders who actually give a damn. The brilliance of Traoré's words lies in their simplicity. He didn't give a lecture on global economics. He didn't drown the conversation in jargon. He asked one haunting question. Are you here for yourself or are you here for your people? That question rattles. It rattles because we already know the answer when it comes to most of our so-called leaders. And it rattles because it forces us, the people, to confront our own complacency. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Corrupt leaders survive not just because they are corrupt, but because we allow it. We settle, we compromise. We say, well, at least he's better than the other guy. And in doing so, we abandon the standard of true leadership. Traoré is not offering us comfort. He's offering us a challenge. He's telling us that leadership is not about managing decline or making excuses. It's about demanding dignity, no matter the cost. And in his exchange with Charlie Kirk, that challenge reverberated beyond Burkina Faso. It struck at the heart of how we all see power. So here's the takeaway when we measure our leaders. When we decide who deserves our trust, we should ask only one question. What are they willing to lose for us? If the answer is nothing, then we already know what they are: actors on a stage, selling illusions, feeding their own appetites. But if the answer is everything, then maybe, just maybe, we found someone worth following. That is why Ibrahim Traoré's words to Charlie Kirk matter far beyond a single conversation. They cut to the soul of leadership. They reveal the fraud of comfort-driven politics. And they remind us that dignity, sacrifice, and service are not optional. They are the essence of power that actually serves people. So let me leave you with this. If you're tired of being lied to, if you're tired of leaders who betray you, if you're tired of being told to settle, then take Traoré's words seriously. Demand more. Refuse to compromise. Expect sacrifice, not slogans. Expect service, not theater. Expect leaders who are willing to lose everything, because anything less is betrayal. And if you believe the world needs to hear this message, then don't just sit back. Speak out. Share this video. Comment your thoughts below. And most importantly, subscribe. Because together, by exposing these truths, we can demand a new standard of leadership, not just in America, not just in Africa, but everywhere.